Hi, welcome to session 4 of these 3D Studio Max training videos. Now, if you've done session 3, I think this one will be fairly straightforward to understand. What we're going to do is we're going to transform objects. So by the end of this session, there's only 2 learning outcomes. You'll be able to transform objects using the scale tool and transform objects using the rotate tool. Okay, so it's a nice easy session, this one, so let's crack on with it. Okay, so you can see here that I've still got the project we had last time, and that's still open, test scene number 3. But I don't want this, so I'm going to start a new document. So I'm just going to go File, New. Do you want to save your changes? No, I don't think I will. And Options, and we'll have New All. Okay, because we don't want anything left over from the other one, so completely new. So we've got a completely blank workspace. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're just going to chuck in some objects, and we're just going to concentrate this time on using these tools here. So we've used the Move tool, but also we're going to use the Rotate tool, and we're also going to use the resizing or the rescaling tool. Okay, so let's put some object in that's easy for us to see what we're doing. So I'm going to make sure I'm on the Create tab there. Make sure I've got standard primitives. I'm going to come to Teapot, and I'm going to come to my top view, because my top view is always the easiest place to put an object in, and I'm going to draw a little teapot. Okay, now it's not in the center, so let's just use some of the things we've played with already just to tidy things up. So I'm going to click on the Move tool, and in my top view I'm just going to move it just so it's in the middle of my scene. Okay, now it's not looking too sort of central to me, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here, and what I'm going to do this time is, instead of just using the magnifying glass tool, I'm going to use this one next to it, which zooms all of the screens together. Okay, so click on that, click, and zoom in. Okay, so that's not too bad. This one here could do with centering up, so I'll come down to the Pan tool down here, and I'll just move it just so it's neat, so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is try and rotate this object, this teapot. So I'm going to come up to the top of my screen here, and I'm going to use this rotate tool. Okay, so click on rotate, and you'll see what happens on all the windows. You get a little circle around your object, and these are really sort of a bit like big steering wheels that let you turn the thing around. If you think of it, you've suddenly put this thing on a potter's wheel if you're looking at this top view. So I can grab this yellow one here, which is kind of the edge of the potter's wheel, if you like. It's an invisible potter's wheel, nobody will ever see it, it's just there for our benefit. And I can click, and I can drag my object around, and you see that what's happening, especially if you watch the perspective window, it's very obvious what's happening. I'm rotating my object. Okay. Now if we go into the front view, I can do a similar thing, but you'll notice that my circle this time goes along this axis, so I can tip it over. Okay, I can tip my teapot over if I want to, from either side. And notice the numbers in the screen which tell me how many degrees I've moved it. So just go back to 0 so it's level again. And just to prove a point, I can go into the left hand view, and I can tip it forward and back. So if I wanted to, I could perhaps animate it at a later stage and just have it pouring a cup of tea out like that. Lovely. 2 sugars. Okay, so that's rotate. Now the next thing to look at is the Resize tool, which is just next to the rotate tool, so it's just up here on the menu bar. Okay, now you'll notice that this one has got a square within a square, and the 2 perfect squares, and that's the one I want. Okay, so if by any chance that isn't there, just let me click on it. You've got various options here, and we can come to these in future tutorials perhaps, but just want that top one. And you'll notice that what happens is, just let me move this around so it's a bit easier for me to see what I'm doing. go to the Resize Tool, and you'll notice that what's happened is in all these windows some handles have appeared. Okay, so I've got a Y handle here, a green stick coming out, and I've got an X one coming out there. Okay, and if I come over to this window here, you can see I've got the same here. I've got a blue one coming down here, which is Z, and it's similar to when we did a resize. So we've got all these handles. Now, you'll notice that when I hover over the end of the handle, my cursor changes. See how my cursor has changed into a small little sort of broken triangle, if you like. Okay, and if I click on and drag on one of these, I can distort my teapot. I can stretch it and make it fat or thin. Okay, I could come to my left of view here, and I could click on the Z axis. I could squash it down or make it, perhaps looking a bit more like a coffee percolator at this point. Okay, so I could play around with stuff, and that's fine. And you certainly do need to distort objects at times. But what if you wanted to just make the teapot bigger? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to undo all this mucking about that I've just done over the last few clicks. So I'm just going to come back to undo up here in the top corner there, the undo tool, and I'm going to click on it, and I'm just going to keep clicking on it until I get my teapot back to normal. Okay, so there it is, and obviously if I wanted to I could redistort it using the redo tool, but I'm just going to undo it back to a normal looking teapot. Now what I'm going to do is, if you remember, so I'm making sure I'm still on my resize tool. If I was over the end here, okay, you remember I got the broken triangle, but I'm going to follow these down, okay, until I come to the point where all these, if you like, these handles meet. So the X, the Y and the Z handles, they all meet in one point, they all come from one point. It's a bit, it's a bit like a tripod almost, it's like the top of the tripod where they all join. And you'll notice that what happens to the cursor, instead of being a broken triangle, it becomes a solid triangle. And then all I've got to do is, if I click and drag with the solid triangle, you'll notice the whole thing grows in size, and it grows equally in all directions. Okay, so that was transforming objects, and hopefully that was fairly straightforward. So if you do the online quiz, and then what we'll do in session 5 is we'll stop these objects being individual objects, and we'll start grouping them together. So I'll see you there.